Audible.
There's a Hole in My Love Cup. The Badass Counseling Method for Healing the Soul and Unleashing Greatness. Written by Sven Erlandson. Narrated by the author, Sven Erlandson. Introduction. In 1956, legendary filmmaker Cecil B. DeMille and Paramount Pictures released what is arguably one of the epic cinematic masterpieces of all time. The film, The Ten Commandments, starred American icon Charlton Heston and depicted the millennia-old story from Jewish scripture about the life and heroic adventures of Moses, particularly his actions in saving the Hebrew people from slavery in Egypt. It is a movie roundly considered one of the greatest, and certainly one of the most enduringly popular in all of American filmography. Perhaps most interesting in the entire narrative of the Ten Commandments is the often overlooked and easily forgotten part of the Moses Odyssey, relative to the high drama of the 12 Plagues and a sea cut in two, known as the Calling, more formally referred to as the story of the burning bush. Moses, you may recall from your own religious training as a child, was tending the sheep of his father-in-law Jethro on Mount Horeb when he, quite unexpectedly, encountered a bush that was consumed by flame but did not burn up. And to the awe and delight of children through the ages, God spoke to Moses from the burning bush. What's most fascinating, relative to the purposes of this book, however, is not that God spoke to Charlton Heston, or Moses, through the burning bush, or even that there is a God at all, though that is kind of a biggie, but what God said in that moment. For it dictates precisely both the ethos of this book and the most frequently missed necessity for great relationships, be it relationships with one's partner, one's friends and family, or, most significantly, with oneself. In that moment of divine revelation, the very first words God speaks to his soon-to-be new messenger are not the unforgettable calling itself, go to Egypt, set my people free, but a conversational precursor, a simple command for recognition of the power of the physical space Moses was now occupying. Moses had just stepped into the presence of the divine. As such, protocol changed. In this unusual space, everything was different. Old rules did not apply. Establishing that, God said to Moses, "Take off your shoes. This is sacred ground." And with that small statement of expectations between parties, the die is cast for what must happen, what must always happen when one stands before the divine, when one stands before that which burns with the most powerful truth. One of the great mistakes made in relationships is the failure to recognize when one is standing before the very gods themselves, the failure to recognize when one is about to walk into and onto the sacred ground of another person. It is at the moment that one person opens up the doors to the darkest corridors of the soul, revealing the presence and voice of the divine speaking from within, that the other person must remove her shoes, that the other person must tread gingerly, fully acknowledging and living in the sacredness of what is being shared. It is in that moment that the dreams, fears, burdens, aspirations, and wounds that are unique to that individual are brought forth, that the one being trusted with these revelations must grasp and fully acknowledge the gravitas of this situation. The biggest mistake people make in relationships is that they treat the sacred as banal. They treat conversations and topics of holy ground as just another grocery list or just another daily conversation. There's no shift in countenance or comportment, not to mention communication. It falls on the one sharing deepest truth to indicate for the listener that this is indeed sacred ground and needs to be treated as such. And it falls on the hearer to remove his or her shoes, metaphorically speaking, to begin to tread ever so gently. Far, far worse, however, and at the root of all other problematic relationships, is that most people do not treat their relationship with their own self, with their own soul, as anything more than an afterthought. For most people, relationship with the true self is something to be done after Security is established, the house is built, the children are born and grown, and the bank account is stocked. For it's usually about that time, somewhere in their 30s, 40s, maybe 50s, that they realize how much life they've missed, how disconnected and unhappy they've become. It manifests as depression or anxiety, general malaise or discontent, but it's there. And it has grown and grown over the years, because they've never treated their own soul as sacred, giving it the homage and the discipline necessary for its expansion and fertility. They became empty inside. Sadly, it's only when the soul has grown empty and arid that its significance is recognized. Often, a grief over the loss of time and life follows in its wake. This book is entirely about that sacred ground of the soul. It is about the depth, gravitas, fear, and longing that are at the root of your madness, your scheming, your obsessions, your depression, your anxiety, and that incessantly churning mind you so wished to shut off. The fundamental operating principle of this book and my life's work is that at the core of the soul, your voice and the voice of the divine or the universe or God or higher self are indistinguishable. The still, small voice speaking from within, when heard, is the only true and lasting source of joy and peace in life. Yet most people have never heard it. They cannot hear it. The sacred space of their soul has forever been cluttered with the garbage and false messages of everyone, particularly, curiously, the most well-intentioned of parents and significant influences. When this still small whisper of the divine is unheard and blocked by fears and negative beliefs, life becomes nothing more than anxiety, depression, and a mad desire to forever seek escape in one form or another. But when the blockages are removed, when the clutter of decades of fear and debilitating lies are removed, the soul breaks forth, enveloping the host body and mind, and manifesting in an external life of great joy. For the person who has the courage to clear the dross and commence a real relationship with their own self, the reward is an integrated life. Outer and inner become indistinguishable. No longer is there a grating mid-chest between who you are and who everyone else sees outside. Depression and anxiety float away, which are the result of that grating of inner and outer worlds. Your soul, which has been fighting to be released onto your life, is finally set free, no longer constrained, and joy follows. Peace follows. Lightness of being follows. Great things, great actions, great callings, great purposes, grand endeavors, all follow. The sacred space of your soul is the Alpha and the Omega. Everything begins and ends there, down where your beliefs reside. Not the beliefs you hold, but the beliefs you don't even know you hold. The beliefs that are controlling your life. More on that as we go. Heal it, and you will never be the same. So please, let me help you do so. Lastly, a few quickie notes. I don't care what you believe about God or the gods, the universe, higher power, or what have you. That's between you and your God or your own self. I have clients who are atheists, agnostics, Orthodox Jews, hardcore Christians, avowed Hindus, pantheists, panentheists, and more. I use God terms interchangeably with soul. You'll understand as we go. This book is 2 books. The main body and then bonus tracks in the back that are recommended at the end of certain chapters. The bonus tracks of this book, for audio purposes, will be read after all of the chapters have been read. I've added journaling, reading, and specific song recommendations at the end of some chapters to expand your interaction with the meat we are chewing on in that particular chapter. Lastly, this book is based on 25 years as a spiritual counselor, which were, in turn, based on the previous 25 years as the son of a pastor father and spiritual counselor/educator mother, as well as 4 uncles who were clergy. Additionally, my bachelor's degree and my master's degree are in religion and spirituality and mathematics. Quite literally, spirituality is my entire life. This is what I do. This is who I am. My life has been about finding the patterns in human spirituality and what it takes to bring healing to bruised and broken lives. A very large portion of my life's work and what I cover in counseling with clients are in this book. I liken this book to back in 1988 when the game show Wheel of Fortune started automatically giving contestants in the bonus round the letters RSTLNE in their puzzles, because most contestants already guessed those common letters anyway. I'm giving you here what is nearly always covered in my spiritual counseling work, so that my clients may be prepared before we even begin our work together, and so that non-clients may do much of the work themselves. So come, let us find you some peace, some clarity, some power, and a whole lot of happiness. Skål.